now.
I call the Township of Aleppo Commissioners meeting of January 17th, 2022 to order. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
President Jones,
Present.
Vice President Williams,
Present.
Commissioner Darrow,
Present.
Solicitor Stone,
Present.
Manager Patterson. Here.
This meeting, as all others, is recorded and uploaded to YouTube. Do I hear a motion to approve the January 3rd reorganization workshop meeting minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Chief?
Good evening, everyone. If I haven't seen you, Happy New Year. Right?
Happy
Yeah.
New Year.
Okay. Great. All right. For the month of December, it was a little bit more calls, but nothing that directly affected the community at large. 46 total calls, a few alarm, ordinance violation. It was a hunting complaint off of Redgate Road. For future reference, if somebody sees somebody that might be a little bit too close to your home or the roadway, chances are if you can see them from your house, they are a little too close. Give us a call. We try to make contact with the person, tell them to move on, make sure that they're in the right area. Had a trespass incident down at the church down here, right off the road down. It was dealt with, person was told not to return. Other than that, one traffic citation was issued, trees down, a few animal complaints as we always have, and those were dealt with appropriately with owners being contacted and told to please keep your dogs on leashes and keep them within your property if necessary. Other than that, everything else was good for December. Nice big snowfall out there. Always wear your seatbelt and drive slowly. Welcome to Pittsburgh again, right? Does the board have anything for me? Any questions, concerns, or issues?
Same question as always. Anything we can do to help you?
No, everything, like I said, see something, say something. Give a call if you have any kind of concerns.
Thank you.
Nothing wrong? Good? We're good? Okay. All right, well, then have a great night.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Emergency management,
No report.
public works.
Yeah, you have the report in your packets. They did some of their regular things. They did the annual Christmas tree collection. I believe we got 51 trees this year for the Christmas tree pickup and recycling program. We think it was probably maybe a little bit too early. We missed, some people had good healthy trees and didn't take them down yet, and so we missed a few. So next year we're going to maybe adjust the date and try to catch a few more trees because this was a lower number this year than we normally have. Did some replacements, we had some signs that were taken out, repaired some stuff, and then obviously the last 24 hours they did nothing but plow. That's why Tim's not here this evening, because he's excused.
Is that it?
Mhm.
Engineering.
Good evening, everybody.
Can you identify yourself?
Sure. Engineer Ben Gilberti with HRG. The two items that I'm here to discuss are the weight limit studies being the first one. HRG's completed the weight limit study for a portion of township roads to include Weber between Glen Mitchell and Ferndale, Ferndale Road between Weber Road between Ferndale and Sycamore Road Extension, Sycamore Road between Weber Road Extension, and Ingleside off the Ferndale Avenue to the end of Ferndale. So the township wanted to look at doing this ordinance in case there's development outside the township that has to traverse through the township to protect the roads. It is an excess maintenance agreement, so if a hauler comes and drives the road, they're not automatically required to fix the road. Kind of the process would be if a developer or a logger or somebody that is going to haul in excess of 10 tons on the road were to utilize the road, they need to post a bond with the township. That would allow the township to do a pre-inspection, so we would go out, take a look at the road, do some video evidence. When they're done using the road, we would go out at the end of that work and do another inspection to see if the road was damaged beyond excess maintenance. So excess maintenance typically is, damage you'd see from snow plowing, your typical potholes. We're really looking for, major areas of destruction. If that were to happen, that the person that bonded the road has the ability to fix the road and or come up with compensation to the township to fix the road. If they choose not to, the township has the ability to pull their bond and gives them legal leverage to go after that person as well. So if someone is not, did not post a bond with the township, it allows the police department to ticket them. Any questions on the general ordinance?
Did you ever report at a meeting on the result of the study?
So we did a study as part of PennDOT's requirements to post the roads. We did an engineering study. We looked at the pavement thicknesses. We looked at the geography, crash data, other relevant information per the PennDOT publication to legally bond the road. The engineering study will provide feedback to the township if one of these would go to court and is challenged about the legality of bonding the road. That provides backup to show that the road standards were up to snuff. So the one, I'll say, surprise that we did find in the engineering study was that the pavement thickness was thicker than I think everyone thought. It averaged between about 4.5 and 7.5 inches, depending on where we took cores. I believe we took 4 cores throughout that area to try to get different sections. The one thing that we did and saw that really justifies the road bond is the road alignment and the road, I'll say, the turning radiuses, right? So when large trucks are coming up, you can't make a turn with the tight geometry of that road without that truck entering into other areas of the road, into the oncoming traffic, poor sight distances. So it's really a safety reason, and that was one of the justifications of why a road bond is important.
Any questions for Ben on that issue?
Your draft ordinance, which would allow you to implement a weight study, is off of a PennDOT template. It has been reviewed by the solicitor, and once advertised and approved, the township will have to post the roads. All of that's identified in the information that we can provide.
Anything to add, Gwen?
Just on the administrative side, it has not yet been advertised, so you would not take any action
Right.
this evening, just
And
let
I-
me know when you're ready to advertise.
And I have reviewed the ordinance. I made a few minor corrections or a few minor revisions to it. But other than that, it was fine and it's ready to be advertised and adopted.
Good.
The other item I have tonight is an update on Rhodes Avenue. We spoke with the geotech consultant. They're finalizing their final report. Some of the, I'll say, cliff notes of the report is that area does show some movement. The movement tends to be higher when we have periods of above normal rain. We believe it's a combination of a historic landslide area, limestone bedrock, and just the Pittsburgh red bed soils that are there. The geotech consultant is asking to get another set of tests. We will be working with that consultant to determine what value those tests bring and see if those tests determine, what is the potential solution. I think, the good news is more testing is generally makes it look like the geotech is looking to figure out the solution versus, we have an emergency situation out there. So generally, I think the movement has been really not noticeable to the naked eye, but is noticeable to the equipment that we put in the ground. So more to come on that.
And Ben, that would not require more drilling?
Correct. It's just another set of readings on the equipment that is there.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Gilberti on that issue?
Anything else?
Not at the moment, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Communications?
We did get one email today, and it was requested to be read at the meeting. So the email is from addressed to me. It says, "This is Don Black. I'd hoped to attend this evening's meeting. Unfortunately, I'm unable to attend. I wanted to personally thank Tim and the team for the outstanding job they did removing snow from last night and throughout today. They did a remarkable job in keeping our roads safe as always." So that's from Mr. Black.
And I second that motion. Planning and zoning. Please. And for the record, just identify yourself. Thanks.
My name is Laura Ludwig. I'm a senior community planner with HRG, and I am here tonight to present an update on the zoning ordinance update and map that we've been working on for pretty much the last year or so. I do have some slides. So this process pretty much began, you can go to the next slide. We really kicked off last February. The Township Planning Commission has held 6 review sessions with myself. Gwen and Harlan have been there, as well as Ben. So at their regular monthly meetings, we've just been discussing, various topics, and I'll give an overview of some of those key topic areas tonight. We also held 3 staff review sessions here with Harlan and Gwen and Ben and myself and other HRG staff. And, just throughout, we've been working on several key topics and issues, updating the zoning map, the uses table, making sure you have definitions on your uses table. We updated the area and bulk tables per each zoning district. And then, some of the key topic areas like short-term rentals, sport courts, and regulations for those, this new ordinance. A snip of the zoning. Your R2, your R3 are still the roughly same area and bulk regulations. Same with the C2 commercial industrial district. Rid of the Weber's Corner, that was removed from the map. But we did add a mixed use area, which you will see if you can go ahead and go to the next slide and actually show the map. There we go. So the mixed use is the purple. So that's along Glen Mitchell Road. We did that in talking just because it really felt like that's what's sort of there existing is a mix of, small scale commercial type facilities and residential. So this would allow for those to continue to, coexist and commingle, but then also provide some opportunity for potential, future small scale commercial development along that corridor as well. And then the industrial park parking overlay, that was an amendment that we helped you with back in 2020. That is shown on this new map. The natural resource protection overlay stayed the same. That is still there. And then we tried to highlight, all the various roads, whether it was the interstate, county roads, local roads, or state roads on this map. So you can go to the next slide. This is just a snip of the first page of the uses table. So again, a lot of uses were added. A lot of uses that we did add ended up being a conditional use. So conditional uses, they give the Board of Commissioners, you guys, the power to, approve, but with conditions. And then there's a whole chapter within the ordinance devoted to that specific criteria for each of those conditional uses. So that's just sort of a snip. But we really did, modernize the ordinance to allow for several new use terms and definitions, and I think you'll see that as you go through the hard copies. And then we did remove certain uses that were maybe outdated or combined them with other uses, newer uses. And one thing that we did note, PRD was removed as a use, and the Swickley Heights Manor PRD is shown on the zoning map as a PRD. It's an approved PRD. planned residential development, sorry, PRD, planned residential development. So, you know, in talking with the planning commission members, they did not feel like there was really enough land, I think, left to create any new PRDs, and that they'd prefer just, you know, single-family residential, or, you know, what is left, you know, them being residential subdivisions kind of coming in and not so much an approved PRD. So that was taken out. And then some other, you know, this is a very small sampling of some of the uses that we added: animal grooming facility, art gallery, brewery, cryptocurrency mining, distillery, flex space. We did address medical marijuana dispensaries and grower processors for medical marijuana, microbreweries and brew pubs, micro distilleries, short-term rentals, solar energy facility, winery, and then youth home. And as I said before, many of the new uses added are conditional uses, and there are general standards and then specific criteria for each of those uses outlined in Article 4 of the new proposed ordinance. In the uses table, we do also add a note that there are shared uses with neighboring Swickley and Glen Osborne boroughs, you know, as part of the joint ASO comprehensive plan. And then any use not listed it would be a conditional use in the C2 zoning district. If it's not in your table and it's not in Glen Osborne's or Swickley's table, it would be treated as a conditional use in C2. This is just a couple of the area and bulk tables that are provided within the new ordinance, and each one is provided for each zoning district. Some of the residential ones did not change much. Obviously, the mixed use area and bulk table is brand new to the ordinance, but nothing really totally earth-shattering or eye-opening there. Tried to be consistent as we could across the board in terms of lot sizes, but you do have the differences now. R1 is your single family, kind of more traditional neighborhood, whereas your R3 is more rural, and then R2 includes much of Masonic Village and some of those surrounding areas, and is a bit more dense. Allows, you know, more density there. And this is the C2 table, and I don't think it changed much. I think we maybe increased the lot coverage allowed slightly. Other than that, that was it. And all of those tables are found in Article 3 of the new ordinance. And then I did want to cover some, you know, sort of hot topic areas that we address in the new zoning ordinance update, the proposed ordinance. Accessory dwelling units are always a hot button issue in any community that we work in, so we added a definition for those. And then they're allowed in R1, R2, R3, and MU only as accessory to a principal residence. And then you see the specific criteria there as well. So has to have its own, you know, bathroom facility, must be, you know, attached somehow. And, you know, there's some limits to the gross floor area there, and it cannot exceed 50% of the gross floor area of the principal structure. So that allows folks some flexibility. Those are becoming more and more popular. And then also granny flats, carriage houses, in-law suites are a type of accessory dwelling unit as well. So this allows for them in the R1, R2, and R3 as accessory to a principal residence. So those are included as well. Sport courts, this was sort of on our list of things to address from the township as part of the update. So we define sport court, and then they are allowed as an accessory use in all zoning districts. And then there are specific regulations for them that are outlined in Article 5, which is the supplemental regulations. And those are shown right here. So they have to be accessory to a dwelling unit. It can only be located in a side or rear yard, shall be no closer to the side or rear property than 20 feet. They cannot be lighted. They have to be enclosed by a fence. They can't exceed 50% of the total area of the rear yard. And then they cannot be placed over utility lines or easements without the approval and permission of the utility owner. Animals, chickens, ducks, bees, and goats. The proposed new ordinance does address all of those animal types. And I think a lot of folks in the township have these already, even as we were driving through and kind of doing the tour that Gwen took me on. We saw some chickens and whatnot, and your ordinance right now does not address those at all. So we added some terms within the definitions related to those, and then specific criteria for each is outlined in Article 5. So chickens is in Section 523 of the ordinance. They're allowed as an accessory use, and the township will, moving forward, this would be something then that the zoning officer would have to provide a permit to folks who want to have chickens. But they're allowed as an accessory use in R1, R2, R3, and MU. And it goes by lot size, and this is a very common way that most municipalities approach chickens. So for the first 4,000 square feet of any property, up to 3 chickens are allowed. And then an additional chicken is permitted for every additional 2,000 square feet with a maximum of 10 allowed on any one parcel. We do prohibit roosters. The chicken coop and outside runs have to be 10 feet away from any property line, any lot line. And there's some general maintenance and upkeep language included within the regulations, including, chicken waste has to be stored at least 10 feet from a property line. And we do specifically state chickens are not permitted in townhome communities, apartments, and mobile home parks, just because those are more dense. There's not enough space for them. Ducks, very similar to chickens. They're allowed in R1, R2, and R3 only. Ducks traditionally in our research we found are a little bit messier, a little bit stinkier, and people complain about them more often. So we're a little bit more strict in the regulations in the proposed ordinance on ducks. So they shall only be kept on properties that are 1 acre or larger. And you can't have more than 5 ducks on a single residence. They have to be kept in the backyard only, have to have enclosed shelters. Again, some maintenance and upkeep language there in terms of waste collection and storage and being, 10 feet from a lot line. And ducks are also not permitted in the more dense developments, townhome communities, apartments, and mobile home parks. And then bees, so honeybees, again, becoming increasingly more popular. Those are allowed in R1, R2, and R3 as an accessory use. Again, just like chickens and ducks, the zoning officer would, a resident would have to apply for a permit from the zoning officer. For the first 4,000 square feet of any parcel, a property owner can have up to 2 hives. Each additional 2,000 square feet, they're permitted 2 additional hives with a maximum of 6 hives on any property. They have to be set back a minimum of 15 feet from the property line, and cannot be, have to be at least 50 feet from a swimming pool or any, permanently kenneled animal. If someone has, a neighbor has like a house outside for their dog or something like that. We do have requirements in there for flyaway barriers, and then we specifically do state bees are not permitted in townhome communities, apartments, and mobile home parks, again, just because they're more dense and there's not a lot of space. Goats are allowed in R3 only, so a little bit different, a little more stringent here. And for properties that have a ½ acre or less, you can have no more than 2 mini goats. And for properties that are an acre or more, you can have 2 mini goats and up to 4 adult goats allowed. And noise was also something that we addressed. I think your current ordinance was a bit unclear about decibel levels, how those were measured, where they were measured from. So these are covered in Article 5. Noise level, we do specifically state should be measured at the property line. There are several exemptions from the noise criteria: farming activities, construction activities, during normal business hours, public recreation uses, at parks, things like that, even community events, block parties, public works activities, and then emergency activities, emergency repairs, sewer, road repairs, anything like that. And then certain levels of noise allowed really does depend on the zoning district. So residential has lower decibel levels than C2. But again, we provide some ranges, and those decibel levels can be measured with a device that you can order from Amazon. And that's something that, either the zoning officer or perhaps, the police would have to help to enforce moving forward. Short-term rentals, we added a definition for short-term rental. A dwelling in which the owner rents any area of the dwelling to one or more individuals for compensation or a fee. It does include offer of exchange of in-kind or any type of overnight accommodations for less than 30 consecutive days. And it applies to all types of residential dwellings, including but not limited to single-family detached residential, two-family, multifamily, and other residential properties commonly considered as seasonal homes or vacation homes or tourist homes. So these are allowed in the R3 zoning district only.
I feel like that might be cut from.
Oh, you're right, from goats. Yeah, I
Yeah.
was gonna say, I think these are allowed as an accessory
Yeah.
use in all the residential
It does
zoning
scare me.
districts. Yeah, sorry, I'm like, that's not just R3, sorry
We're
about
gonna-
that.
We're gonna put the short-term rentals in with the goats.
Yes,
And
it's
maybe even a rooster.
perfect.
We'll
It's
throw a rooster in there.
perfect, yeah. So sorry, here we go. So they're allowed as a conditional use in the 3 residential zoning districts and then the mixed use district, and then subject to the criteria outlined. So the property owner must reside in the principal structure. So that's one key thing there. What we're trying to do there is avoid, and even with the 30-day limit here, I think we're trying to avoid, the party house, all this extra parking, but still provide folks the opportunity to have that income if they so desire. And then small wireless, I don't know, probably aware there was an act recently passed last year, State Act 50, that updated some of the wireless communication facilities legislation within the state. So we did add a new definition for small wireless facility to the ordinance. And added some updated regulations so that your wireless communication facilities article or chapter in the proposed ordinance complies with that recent amendment. So small wireless, you can add design criteria that the act did state that. But basically these do need to be allowed within the public right-of-way. So we just have stipulations and whatnot within the wireless article that address this, but we did add that criteria and that definition. And then quickly, signage is outlined in Article 9. A separate section, there's separate regulations for signs permitted in the residential districts, and then there's some separate regulations for signs in the commercial industrial district, and then separate regulations for signs in the MU district as well. We updated the list of exempt and prohibited signs. And then there's limitations on some of the height and size and whatnot specific to each sign and then specific to each type of zoning district. And then we do have in the updated ordinance, proposed ordinance, there's some language that was added on digital display and message center signs. And those are not allowed in residential or MU, but are allowed in the C2 district. And then, so in terms of next steps, I do have the draft ordinance here. It's available for your review. We printed out some copies, so you are more than welcome to look through it. We do plan to have, I believe, a meeting with some area, stakeholders and property owners to just review and discuss some of the changes. And then we'll make some edits and revisions to the draft ordinance after, obviously, tonight's meeting, and if you have questions, and after that stakeholder meeting. And then once the draft is finalized, the official, public review and approval process will begin. So we have to send it to the county planning department. They have to review it and provide comment. It's a 45-day review period for a new ordinance. The planning commission will host a public meeting, and then you as the board will host the official public hearing at some point as well. So, yeah, we're working to kind of finalize it. Just, get a little bit of feedback and comment now, and then we'll officially put it on public display, probably sometime in February. If you guys have any questions, I know that is a lot to take in at one time, and it's a fairly lengthy document. It's 288 pages. Again, complete update, modernization. A lot of the pages, honestly, is mostly definitions and the conditional use criteria for all the conditional uses, but always available by phone or email if you guys have questions as you continue to go through. And Gwen and Harlan and Ben could answer questions also. They've been heavily involved and attended all the meetings as well, so.
Planning has been involved,
Yeah,
zoning hearing board.
they have not, no.
They would not be part of the legislative process,
Okay.
only if there are hearings. But disputes under the zoning ordinance, so then the zoning hearing board gets involved. But as far as creating the ordinance and the legislation, that goes from the planning commission to you. No zoning hearing board involvement.
I think that was a very concise presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah, let me say a lot, anytime you redo your zoning ordinance, it's generally months to a year in that process. And to do it right, you really need a good consultant. And Laura and Ben and HRG, working with them and Gwen they've really done, in my opinion, they've done a great job pulling this together. Where you run into the most problems with zoning legally is when you don't provide for a new use that comes in, and you're left and you haven't defined it and you haven't provided for it, and then you get a challenge, and the next thing you know, you have a problem with the developer that it can be way more damaging to the community than if you had dealt with it up front. And you can't always deal with these things up front because you don't know. Who had ever heard of Airbnbs before a couple of years ago? And then, so your zoning ordinance is always going to lag behind a little bit in terms of newer uses, but the objective we found with our old ordinance, it just simply, one, didn't address a lot of the newer uses, but also in some situations didn't adequately define and address other kinds of uses as well. So we ran into it with Airbnb, short-term rental. We ran into it with the bees and the urban farming type of situation. We also ran into it with some of our sign provisions because, believe it or not, LED lighting and digital lighting really wasn't that common until fairly recently. So with those digital signs, we had to deal with that. So in addition to cleaning up some of the defects or the omissions in the past ordinance, the group really tried to address and anticipate how to handle newer uses. The other thing I just wanted to say is, zoning isn't always about allowing or disallowing uses. Sometimes it's about allowing the use and how to regulate the use. And sometimes the regulatory provisions, the way that you address the use, it can be more significant than whether you allow it or ban it. And most uses, it's expected most uses will be provided for and will be allowed one way or another, but it's subject to the control and regulation of the municipality. So in this case, what the group decided to recommend was many of the uses that we allow for, we allow them as conditional uses. And what that means is a conditional use doesn't go to the zoning hearing board on an application, it comes before the Board of Commissioners, and because it comes before you as a board, you then have the opportunity to impose reasonable conditions on approval of that use. So you can't deny the use if it meets the conditions of the ordinance. However, you can add reasonable conditions to those that are already in the ordinance. So it gives you the maximum opportunity in each case to regulate that use and to do it, and have it be somewhat case specific. So that's all I wanted to say, but again, HRG and Laura did a great job.
Does it address harboring domestic animals on the property?
There is, we provide a definition for domestic animals and also exotic animals as well. So it prohibits certain types of exotic animals, and then yes, you can only have so many animals per property.
Thank you.
Which can become a problem if,
Yes,
especially cats and dogs.
That's what I'm thinking about.
yes, yes.
I think we see that later in the agenda.
So I will be in touch with the commissioners about the upcoming stakeholder meeting. We've been approached by a couple representatives of people in the township, and they wanted to, get in before everything was finalized. And so I'd like to have at least one or two, well, max of two commissioners involved in that stakeholder meeting also. So I'm gonna be starting to pull that together, and I'll be in touch about that.
Thank you.
And there are hard copies of the map up here as well. I forgot to mention that. The big document was up here, but there is also for you to take.
Good presentation.
Very nice.
Okay, tax collector treasurer.
Good evening, everybody.
Evening.
You should have in your report December 2021 and basically our year-end statements. As you can see on page 2 of the report, in December we collected total of $32,614.10 in taxes. If you look on pages 3 and 4, gives you all the visual breakdowns of December 2021 compared to December of 2020, and then obviously the year-to-date to the budget, and obviously prior year information as well. We were a little over budget. It looked like due to the hot real estate market. I think we did quite well with that. A lot of catching up, I believe, on some of the delinquent tax property taxes and things like that. So that's kind of some of the increases there. As far as the ending account balances for the PNC checking account, you have $535,659.36. And then all of our investment accounts. The liquid fuels has $66,586.42. The general investment, the Pliget, has $964,541.62. The reserve fund has $112,710.74. The capital improvement has $899,856.47. So total monies on hand is $2,579,354.61. However, you have to subtract out all the pledged funds, targeted funds. So total net operating funds is $1,500,200.98. Then you also down at the bottom there have the sewer bond account. Total balance of $361,183.43, and then the new stormwater account has $147,346.96. Any questions with any of that?
Wayne, anything to add?
No, there'll be some miscellaneous little numbers trickling in at the end of the year, but coming in the next month, actually a month or two. And then we'll get together, talk and see, make sure that we're really clear on the finals, make sure there's not anything weirdly outstanding.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Clay.
Thank you.
Do I hear a motion to approve the deputization, etc.?
So moved.
Second.
As read. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
I'll just read that, just
Yes.
for the motion to approve the deputization of deputy tax collector agreement between Clayton R. Stoop and Jordan Tax Service Incorporated. And this is a standard every 4-year agreement that Clay's the elected tax collector, but we use Jordan Tax to do the actual collecting. And this is just ratifying.
Do I hear a motion regarding the finance?
Move to approve December bill list in the amount of $26,546.13. to ratify December prepaid bills in the amount of $12,865.33, and to ratify December payroll transfers in the amount of $15,697.50.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Aleppo Township Authority,
No report.
Quaker Valley COG.
In your pocket here, there's a relatively extensive report from Patrick on what's going on, particularly the glass and also the GIS. And the GIS seems to be getting more and more popular as the other municipalities realize how many functions it can be used for. So I'm applauding that to stay in line. That's it.
Anything specific about the glass recycling? Gwen?
So, yeah, I can do that one. We've long been talking at the COG about a permanent semi-permanent location for a glass recycling dumpster rather than just having it move 1 week here and there, and covering the Quaker Valley area for, 2 weeks out of the summer. And so Patrick had asked if Aleppo was one of the, he's asked several municipalities, asked if we would be willing to host it on a permanent basis. Knowing that we could remove it if it wasn't working out, but agreeing to commit to having it here all the time rather than just for a week at a time. And so you'll see a letter from him explaining the pros and cons of, or the pros of having it on your site. And then the second page is a breakdown of what some shared costs would be, because it's not a free service. So this breaks down based on population about how much the fees would be if everyone in the COG participated. So right now, if every municipality agreed to pay their share based on proportion of population, if for Aleppo, it would cost about $600 a year to have a permanent glass recycling location. If it ends up somewhere else and all municipalities in the COG participate, that would still be our cost wherever it is. It's probably unlikely that we're going to get every single municipality to sign on, so the cost would end up probably being shared by those who have residents who have expressed an interest and who have always expressed an interest in recycling. Our cost would go up probably a little bit, so I wouldn't hang your hats fully on the $600. We've talked about the location here, and Tim and I talked about it, and we don't want to put it, if we were to do it, and this is still an if, we don't really have a recommendation one way or the other just yet. We still need to talk about it some more. We wouldn't want to put it over in the Public Works parking lot, because that is a 1 lane in, 1 lane out driveway, and we don't want cars coming and going at all hours over there, or if they had an emergency and need to get in and out, we just don't want to put it over there. So the best location would be somewhere over here on the township side of things. We don't necessarily want to have it in the same location where it was on the temporary time, because that blocks off about 6 or 7 parking spaces. And while we don't always have a lot of cars here on election day and some other days if we had a very popular meeting, we wouldn't want to give up all those parking spaces. So we talked a little bit about possibly pouring a pad for it out in the grass area somewhere where people would park here, or possibly having it, see, here's North Drive and here's the building, possibly having it run this way in the last parking space where it would abut the grass on one side, and then people would just pull in here and then walk over to the bin. We just had a preliminary conversation about it, about a location, but we wanted to find out if the board was even willing to entertain being a permanent site on a extended trial run for that.
I think it's something we should look at. I mean,
Yeah, I think we'll sort of,
glass recycling is an issue.
I definitely get calls about it a lot, and people coming in asking where they can recycle the glass. This would be open to everyone, not just Aleppo residents. We would not be checking on it. Our job would be to, make sure that there wasn't a bunch of glass on the ground, and periodically go out with a broom and sweep it up, and then let Patrick know when it was getting to the level that they want to see where it's full, and then let him know, and he would schedule the removal of the full one and a return of the second one, an empty bin. So he would be handling all the administrative stuff. We would just generally be the site, and then with sharing in the cost with our other communities.
Any other
And the
thoughts?
card would be involved with paying the company that's taking the glass.
Yes, the billing would be through the COG, so they would bill us, the COG would bill us for our share or any municipal share, and they would handle all the financial transactions with CAP or whatever glass company they end up using.
I think it would be prudent to look very carefully at any additional costs we're not thinking about.
Mhm.
I'm a little curious about benefits to the host site.
Mhm.
I think there is some risk, I think there is some liability. I'm wondering if we need cameras and other things. I know that there are sensors that will tell you when the dumpster is full. And then my standard question, Gwen, is I'd love to see the data on the prior collections. How much glass was collected, where it went, what value it had. Just to make sure it's a worthwhile project. I agree that glass recycling is important.
So what I will say to Patrick so far is that it is not off the table in Aleppo, that we're still considering it. We have a couple other factors we want to research first and get, feel comfortable with, and including another conversation with Public Works about the location and, the responsibility for glass in the parking lot and things like that.
And I think we'd want to know, before we committed, we'd want to know how many other municipalities are going to actually be participating.
And along the lines that George just mentioned, in terms of the host municipality, you might want to check and see if this increases our insurance in any respect. If we're gonna have that on our premises, and if so, that may be something that we want to consider passing back to the COG for reimbursement.
And Gwen, in these discussions, has there been any discussion about options or complementary activities to a dumpster? In other words, bottle deposits, etc.?
I know nothing about bottle deposits at a COG level.
Would you tell them I think that would be interesting to investigate?
Can you
Just-
explain what you mean, how that would work?
Well, to put some pressure on the legislators, etc., to consider that. Those are the most successful glass recyclings in the country. In other words, a more comprehensive look.
Mhm.
Because again, as we've discussed, I would prefer to see a system where you take it back to where you bought it. Any other discussion?
I think that I'd like to see a little bit more. I understand that Patrick's trying to be handling the administrative area, but I haven't seen or heard anyone talk about the actual operational considerations of when the traffic's coming in and coming out. Secondly, I'm not so sure that the back end of a dumpster is going to be an addition to beautification of the place.
That's also a thing, the best location strategically is one of the least appealing aesthetically. To like plop it right in the front or plop it right in the yard. Our guys try to keep our yard, we have landscaping, we have trees, and we try to keep it looking nice, and the best physical location for it is right there. So we're trying to balance a lot of those things, because it is something that we've been approached that people want, but we want to make sure that we don't just say here because somebody wants it.
Has anybody looked at host sites other than municipal?
Yes, that's an ongoing request and research by Patrick, is to try to find other locations that are not municipalities.
State store parking lot.
Yeah, behind the giant eagle.
I have a whole list of all the things that everyone mentioned. I'm going to take this back to
But we,
them for
but we are
discussion.
very open to entertain the thought. Mr. Solicitor.
So my report pretty much was covered by Laura and Ben. The only other thing that sort of segues into that, George, is the unfinished business that I think you...
Right.
So I can take that up.
Please do.
So what the way I understand it, the question was, what are other municipalities doing with the request to sign the Meaner letter?
Just for the recording, this is in regard to a letter of support regarding Pennsylvania House redistricting.
Several municipalities were asked to sign I'll call it the Meaner letter, which was from Bell Acres. From what I can tell, Sewickley Heights met today to consider that. Their mayor's signature appeared on the letter. The letter has already been sent. Sewickley Heights, at their borough meeting tonight, voted to approve the mayor's signature on the letter. I think the discussion here, according to what was reported from the reorganization meeting, had to do with whether the board, wanted to sign or join in that letter, whether you were considering doing your own letter, either in support or opposition, or, just how you wanted to handle it. Glen Osborne will be taking it up at their meeting tomorrow night. As I said, Sewickley Heights, although they hadn't considered it previously, approved of the signing by their mayor. If you are going to do it, if you are going to write your own letter, in order for it to be received, it has to be uploaded and dated no later than tomorrow. So that's my report on that.
Thank you. And the three communities that would be moved from this district are Sewickley Hills, Bell Acres, and Sewickley Heights?
That's my understanding. I don't know, I can't confirm that, but...
Okay, so just to start the conversation, I see no good reason to split the districts. I haven't... Dan, you had a thought.
Well, my thoughts focused on the school district, which right under the proposal would be split, and part of the school district would be in one of the districts and part of the school district would be in the other. It's already a small school district with underrepresentation. It seems to me that it should be in a situation where it's in a unified district.
So again...
I strongly agree with that.
Yeah.
That was my thought of dividing it in half, and now you have,
It makes no sense.
no, none whatsoever.
So-
To me,
A suggestion again, if I were writing the letter, it would be Aleppo Township Commissioners strongly oppose the separation, whatever. 2 sentences. And I'd like to get it in tomorrow if everybody approves.
So moved.
So moved.
second.
And who should write it?
Well, it looks to me like from what's been going on is it's either the mayor or the chairman of the board. So my suggestion is you take a vote tonight. If it's unanimous, as it appears to be, then you authorize the president to draft and sign the letter in opposition.
I would like to authorize Commissioner Dara,
Second.
if he accepts.
To write the letter?
Yeah, 2 sentences.
Sure.
All right,
If you want to run it by me, I'll be around.
Art, could you make a motion then, please?
I made a motion that if he has the time, have Dan construct a short and concise letter. In favor of...
Second.
Good. Any further discussion? A bit of clarification. I think what we've just approved is, yes, we want to write the letter. Yes, we want it submitted tomorrow. And yes, we want Commissioner Dara to write it in concert with our solicitor as required.
Correct.
Something like that.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Gwen and Patty, maybe you can help with that. Okay.
Show of hands.
New business. Gwen?
We received a letter in the mail that I can read. It's signed from an anonymous neighbor. So it was addressed to Commissioner Haluka specifically, but we all felt that it was just, I'm not sure why her name was picked out of perhaps the hat on who to get the letter. Aleppo Township is negligent in its duties to protect its residents' health and welfare by ignoring and permitting a cat hoarding and animal abuse situation to exist at 111 Nancy Drive. 22 cats are being hoarded at 111 Nancy Drive by property owners Douglas and Catherine McCombie. These cats are now and have been a nuisance in the neighborhood for the past 7 years as they seek food and shelter, sleeping in trees and shrubs and spreading disease. An additional 6 of these hoarded cats beg for food and shelter on the back porch of the Masonic Village Nursing Home. The house at 111 Nancy Drive is vacant. Owners Douglas and Catherine McCombie reside in Ambridge, Pennsylvania. The time is now for you, the elected township commissioners, to live up to your sworn duties, take action, and eliminate these cats from the neighborhood. And it was signed an anonymous neighbor.
Thank you. We've investigated this before, Gwen. Can you recall the result of our investigations?
Yes, there's not one agency that deals with feral or neighborhood cats, as I've heard them referred to now.
Yeah, these are not feral to my knowledge.
They're they can be approached, I think, some of them. I'm not really sure. There's, people often say, well, call animal control. Well, that's not a specific agency in a local municipality. The city might have an animal control division, but we don't. In the past, municipalities used to contract with companies that served to be an animal agency. Like we used to use Triangle Pet. They no longer exist, and we do not know of other ones, so we do not currently pay a contract or have an agreement with any kind of animal agency. A lot of times when they exist, they handle dogs and other kinds of animals, but they don't handle cats. I was given the name of an Animal Friends police officer, a Humane Society police officer. I've not contacted him yet, but I've given that contact information. And I know there are certain organizations in the area. A lot of them do what's called trap, neuter, and return programs, TNR, and they collect the cats, take them and spay or neuter them, clip their ears so you know it's been done, and then they return them to the area. That's a lot of what a lot of the agencies who bill themselves as humane do that, so they will be reducing the cat population over time by reducing the birth rates.
I didn't have the chance. I wanted to talk to the chief about this a little bit, so I think talk to him at some point. We should do that. And the trap, neuter, vax, return issue doesn't satisfy the need to eliminate. And I think the author of the email should understand there really is no elimination possibility. And
No short term. No short-term possibility.
well, you can't just walk over and shoot them.
You can, but you'd be in big trouble.
So I think
No comment.
that the trap and return is the standard right now. And I know one volunteer group that does that work in Bell Acres, and it's about $60 a cat, because I think they take them to a vet in Ambridge and they clip and they vaccinate and they neuter. It's viable, but it doesn't eliminate because they come back. The intent is to reduce the numbers because they're breeding.
The
So
house
we,
has been vacant for a couple of years now. There was an elderly resident who lived there and who tended to a few of the cats, and I think the population has just grown. She moved away, and then it's our understanding she has since passed away. So the names that are the current owners are not the owner that was a longtime owner who lived over there.
so to the anonymous author, it would be helpful if you could help us with some options that you think of, right? I mean, we don't know all the details, we don't know who's feeding, we don't know much at all. Mr. Solicitor, do you have any comment on feral cat communities?
No, I don't know that we have an ordinance at this time which addresses that. I think if it turns out that it's a health matter, a health safety issue, there may be some way to address it under your general powers. But I'm not aware of an ordinance that we have on the books right now that would allow us, as you say, to eliminate as opposed to regulate. So, no, I don't.
Well, can't the zoning ordinance restrict the number of cats can be at any one property?
Yeah, and in fact, our new ordinance will do that.
But nobody owns these.
Yeah.
Yeah, right, and we don't have a property,
If
we
you
don't
put
have
a-
anyone occupying the premises.
There's no property owner in the site.
What's the condition of the property? Is it in livable condition or is it a,
I was in it 10 years ago and it was okay then. I don't know what it's like inside now. It's an older home.
And when we discussed, Masonic Village owns one of the houses near,
Yes,
and the cats are near Masonic Village.
yes,
Yes.
And we think perhaps being fed from time to time.
yes.
The last time we talked about this, we did ask Eric Gross, who's the executive over there, to do what he can to keep the people from feeding them with tidbits here and tidbits there. I don't remember exactly what Eric did, but for some time it seemed to go subdued. Now they're back. And, but they're healthy, they're clean, and I would be more than happy to personally approach Eric and have him put out a directive to the residents, which now probably have turned over 2 or 3 times,
Yep.
and let the people know that feeding the cats is not acceptable.
There was some staff in the past, when we talked about this several years ago, some staff feeding it. We know that there were some people driving in with shelters
Yeah,
for some of these. There's a certain kind of shelter that people build for outdoor cats. And we know that some people had been driving in from who knows where and setting up some of these shelters, so.
So I did think of something. I had a situation in another municipality similar in that the property, the woman who owned the property passed away. The cats multiplied and the health emergency became so severe in terms of defecation and things that were going on inside the house and outside, that the municipality declared it a nuisance. They reported it to the county health department, and the county health department intervened and treated it. Now, again, it has to be so bad that the county will condemn it as a health hazard, or that the community will declare it a nuisance. So if it's a few cats and they're healthy and they're being cared for, I don't know if it'll meet those criterion, but I would suggest county health department as a possibility.
that's a good possibility, I believe. The conditions that you've just discussed don't appear to be in that range.
But it might be worth a call just to find out.
You know, just with a little bit of research, I was kind of surprised. Not feeding them doesn't get them to go away. And they'll end up somewhere else nearby, like the next house, or closer to the residents at the Masonic Village. So the only one that I researched that seems to be used in other states and under ordinance, etc., is the trap and return. But again, that doesn't satisfy the
Right.
elimination.
Don't
It might
reduce-
over years.
Gwen, would you send me a copy of that anonymous letter?
Sure, I think it's in your packet.
Okay.
I think it's
If
in
it
the,
is,
yeah,
that's
it's in the
packet.
All right, fine. I'll use that as a premise to go to Eric
Mhm.
and tell him that we've we've had,
Great.
and let's see what he, because I don't know whether they've been having a problem, you know.
I haven't yet contacted the people that this writer says are the owners of the property. Would you like me to contact them and just
Yeah, I
see what
think
their,
that'd be
what their
wise.
deal is? Okay.
Right.
Yeah, and you might mention that,
Well, I'll consider we got a complaint.
and you know, the risk is that if the property is so what's the word? So infectious, if it really is a health hazard, they run the risk of losing their property. Because if the county health department comes in and they condemn it, the next thing may be a demolition or a tear down of a nuisance structure.
I would also, Glenn, recommend maybe just calling the human service at Animal Friends. In the previous municipality where I worked, it was a different situation, it was dogs, and the house was also, in a quarter situation, many dogs. But they were extremely helpful with us, and it's like the whole investigation part of it. And I mean, that property owner was not deceased or anything, but I don't know, they may have some resources or at least be able to guide you in the right direction.
Sure, thank you.
I know those dogs were eventually taken to Animal Friends, I think eventually adopted after they went back. So I don't know if that's a
Yeah.
possibility with
Well-
these cats or not, but, or if Animal Friends would take them.
The problem,
Can't hurt dogs.
all the shelters are filled with cats. These are partly feral cats, not easily adopted. But I'm going to talk to the young lady that helps in Bell Acres just
Okay,
to get an
great.
idea. But again, just through, a good Google search, it's the only methodology that has worked. So I think to clarify our last gray motion, I'm going to ask Commissioner Dara to read his letter that's going in regard to the redistricting. We'll vote on that.
This we can handle.
Dear whoever it is that gets this letter, the Commissioners of Aleppo Township, Allegheny County are unanimously and strongly opposed to the proposed redistricting map that would result in placing the Quaker Valley School District in 2 districts. That result makes no sense and would be detrimental to the school district.
Would you make a motion to accept that letter?
I make a motion to accept
Yeah,
that
the only
letter.
thing I'd be careful is, are you unanimous because those present voted unanimously? Or are you
The majority of
unanimous?
the,
Right, so I'm not sure I would say unanimous.
Okay.
let me just say the commissioners.
All present.
Just saying.
The
So
commissioners.
without saying unanimously, it says the Commissioners of Aleppo Township are strongly
There you
opposed.
go.
There you
There you
go.
go.
I think that makes, I think you make the
Watering it
point.
down.
And I'll second the motion.
Okay.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye,
Aye,
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Commissioner Dara.
you're welcome.
thank you very much.
Any other new business?
Yes. Well, just an update for you and anyone listening. Trash and recycling is delayed one day this week. Waste management was not working today. So every community is delayed one day this week. That's our most popular phone call that we get is when is the trash coming. So we put it on the website, we put a pop-up box, put it on latest news. I called the manor and left a message. Somebody from the villas at Masonic called me and they were gonna call their office. So we're just trying to tell everyone, your trash day this week will be Wednesday.
Thank you
Fingers
very much.
crossed.
Any other new business? Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you very much.